From sunny Southern California, we bring you Meet Bridget, a podcast for building confident communication and female badassery. We spotlight women who have bridged the gaps in their lives by building strong relationships and speaking their teenage dreams into reality.
Bring it on, baby!
Fasten your seatbelt.
Welcome back to Meet Bridget, a show that sheds light on the often untold teenage and young adult stories of successful women from all types of backgrounds and in all sorts of careers. This show was an extension of our confidence coaching service for women, and it has just continued to evolve and grow over the last several years. For those of you who are new to the show, I'm Keshiia Rosenberg, and I co-host this alongside our Meet Bridget founder and my very best friend, Asha Gabriel. We are in season 5 of our Meet Bridget podcast, which is so cool. We're in the business of sharing unique perspectives from a myriad of different journeys, and each of our female guests comes on and brings so much to the table, how they've grown through and in spite of and because of their life experiences. So today is someone whose story is equal parts grit, grace, and unwavering determination. Celeste Lozano is a deputy district attorney for the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office. She's currently assigned to downtown LA, where she handles preliminary hearings. She officially joined the office in August of 2024 as a senior law clerk and was sworn in as a full deputy district attorney just a few months later after passing the July bar exam on her first try, which is a big feat. A lot of my best friends went to law school. A lot of them did not pass on the first try or the second. So that's huge in and of itself. Celeste's path to the courtroom is anything but conventional. She began her college journey at Los Angeles Pierce College, then transferred to Cal State Northridge, and later she earned her law degree from the University of West Los Angeles School of Law. But what makes Celeste's story truly extraordinary is what came before all of that. She became a mother at just 14 years old. And against all odds, she graduated high school, raised her son Jesse, and never once let go of the vision she had for her future. She is living proof that no circumstance defines your ceiling, and today she's here to share her story. So welcome, Celeste. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. That was such a sweet introduction.
Well, you did it. All I did was tell our audience what you've accomplished, and that's just so far, which is incredible. So I want to dive right in. We have had, a couple attorneys on the show. I have a lot of my dear friends are in the field of law, but a lot of our listeners might not actually understand or know what the nuances are, the differences are of working for the district attorney's office and what that looks like. So I'd love for you to tell us a little bit more about that and what your day-to-day looks like.
Absolutely. So just to kind of give an overview of what my role is, anytime you see on TV or whatever, when people say for the people, that's me. So whenever I introduce myself on the record, I'll say Celeste Lozano for the people. And what that means is whenever there are criminal cases that are filed and they make their way through our criminal courts, we represent the named victims or whoever is listed as, it's not always like a named victim, but whoever was wronged. We represent those people. And specifically in downtown, it's the really, really, really big courthouse. So we're very busy. And my day-to-day looks like court open at 8:30 every day. I get to work, I'd like to say it's 7 o'clock because I have to prepare everything the morning of. I get to my courtroom at 8:30. And what I end up doing is I run the whole calendar. And what that means is we have a bunch of cases that are set on calendar. So we have some preliminary hearings. We have some restitution hearings. We have some stuff that's just for like progress report. And just to kind of go a little bit back on what preliminary hearings are. So they're only pertaining to felony cases. So whenever there's a felony case that's filed, it goes through the arraignment process, and then it makes its way to the preliminary hearing court. And what my job is as a prosecutor is I'm supposed to put on witnesses and show the court there's enough probable cause in this complaint to then move it up to the next stage. And we don't have that for misdemeanor. So it's only for felonies that the people are required to show that there's probable cause that a crime was committed. And it is very challenging because as part of my day-to-day stuff, I need officers, I need victims, I need the person that saw that man throw the rock through the window, right? Like I need testimony. And sometimes it's hard for me to gather my witnesses. My office, we send out subpoenas timely, but sometimes people are afraid to come to court. They don't want to come to court. They don't understand what's going on. So my morning is gathering my witnesses and gathering my evidence to put on in front of the judge. And I do that alongside with whoever's defending the defendant. In this case, I do with a lot of public defenders, alternate public defenders, and private attorneys. So when I walk into the courtroom every morning, I like to say it's my courtroom. And I know that it does belong to the judge. We have so many moving factors, but the reality of it is like the district attorney, we can't run the show unless there's a district attorney that's ready to go sitting and, at counsel table. I am fortunate enough this summer to have a law clerk, which is great because my law clerk definitely, I still feel like a law clerk myself, to be completely honest, but she helps me gather all of my witnesses, take down phone numbers, and that's the reality of my day-to-day. And sometimes I have 9 preliminary hearings that I'll put on in front of the judge in one day. Sometimes I'll only be able to put on 1 or 2, but it's really just hectic. But it's great. I love
Is the number of hearings dependent on like how complicated a case might be?
It depends. So a lot of times our judicial assistant, so inside of the courtroom, I'm not sure if you'd like me to briefly get into this, but we have the judge, we have our court reporter, and then we have judicial assistant. The judicial assistant is also one of the most important people in that courtroom because that's who's responsible for managing our calendar. If attorneys are trying to put stuff on new dates, the judicial assistant will say, we have too many on that date. We need to pick a different date. So it doesn't always matter on the complexity. We just do our best to try to manage our calendar pretty much. Unfortunately, sometimes stuff from other courts get thrown in on our calendar and we have no say. So I wish it was based on the complexity because that would make a lot more sense. But it's really
complicated.
Yes, it is.
What it reminds me of, and this is probably a poor analogy, but this is just so indicative of where I am in life, like as a mom, as a working mom, but it's kind of like your mornings are spent like gathering everything you need for the day, like all the toys, all the stuff. Do I need this? Thinking ahead. That takes a lot of organization and balance. So do the types of cases that you preside over, do they vary? Or because it's preliminary, it could be a little bit of this, a little bit of that. You're basically just representing the interests of the people?
Yeah, that's a great question. I get asked that question a lot, even from officers, because they're like, I see that you have a lot of gun cases. Do you only do gun cases? And the answer to that is no. There's no rhyme or reason as to what specific cases we get. I can range from like carjackings to batteries to having guns. I've been doing lately a lot of narcotics cases as well. There are some cases, this is what's really cool about the downtown courthouse is because it's so huge, we have so many district attorneys. Like that's our main hub of where our DAs are. So if we have like a murder case, that's going to be specially assigned to a DA that is going to handle that case throughout. Because I'm just a baby DA. If they handed me a murder preliminary hearing, I would not know what to do. For the most part, we do get like a wide range of cases. I have had attempted murder cases that I got to do, which is really interesting. And I think it's also like our supervisors, they kind of gauge where we're at, like if they think we can handle it or not. And I personally think that I'm always a go-getter, and I'm like, I want to try and learn and do as many of these as I can so that I can make a name for myself and also learn, right? Like we're never going to learn unless we get thrown in there. Yeah. And just to briefly add on to my experiences, this is my first preliminary hearing assignment as a deputy district attorney. I was previously doing misdemeanors. So I got sent to the busiest in the entire county, the busiest preliminary hearing unit. And it was fantastic because I needed them to throw me in with no training wheels because now when I walk into court, I've been there about a month now, I feel confident and I'm like, I don't always know how to handle each case, but what I've learned is how to think on my feet. And that's what I think is the best thing to do to learn as an attorney because we'll never always be ready to handle every case because every case is so different. And I think what makes the best DAs is to not handle, oh, I have to have these 5 gun cases. They're all very different. Treat them all different. Every defendant's different. Every facts are different. All the officers on each of these cases are different. So I think learning the skill of how to think on your feet is what is really important to make a really, really good DA, because we're getting bombarded constantly. Like, everybody needs us, right? Every defense attorney's like, I want my case to go. I want my case to go. And I'm like, wait a minute, one at a time.
You have to kind of triage and like figure out what takes precedence. Yes. So what's really interesting to me when you describe this, especially like being that you're in the downtown office, that's the hub of Los Angeles, right? I mean, and Los Angeles is huge for anyone who doesn't live here. I mean, we have like all different sections and neighborhoods, and it's just a sprawling city with so many different little cultural hubs and vibes and areas. But downtown really still is the hub, I think. What's interesting to me is like, do you feel like when these cases come in, you kind of get to have a pulse of like what's going on in the city? So like one day you'll see like more, I don't know, gun cases come through, or more like violent crime, or like more misdemeanor. Like, do you feel like the office gets to kind of understand the pulse of the city in that way?
Yes, absolutely. I do think that. And for example, of what's currently going on in downtown Los Angeles, we have a lot of protests that are going on. And we also have a lot of people that are not part of the protest, but they are committing crimes. And it is becoming convoluted, where it's difficult for us to try to separate who are the protesters and who are the people that are here committing crimes. To add on to that, we are now at the stage of where we are prosecuting the people that our office has found that are committing the crimes, not just the protesters. So that's something that we're going to get a slew of those cases within the next coming weeks. So I think that's the best example to answer your question of, this is us gauging what's going on in our community specifically. So this is one example that I personally am dealing with. And
wild. And so cool to like understand, this is an institution of, local governance. And so for me, it's really cool when you think about what makes a city. Like, you have all these offices, you have the fire department, the LADP or LAPD, or the police department for any other city. You have like Parks and Rec, and then you have the DA's office and like the center of governance. What are some of your favorite parts of the job?
My favorite part, personally, of my job is that I have the discretion to do the right thing. And I say that wholeheartedly because the position that I'm in comes with great power. And I think personally, as myself, I'm still learning how important that is. And I take it very gracefully and humbly because I come from a background of not understanding like even what a district attorney is, and I don't come from a background of law as a child. So to kind of add on to it, I think that's my favorite part, is like I have the discretion to sit down and look at a case and speak to my supervisor and say, I don't think that we should proceed on this. I don't feel right about it. Or, to talk to them and say, I think that this is my opinion of how I think we should disposition this case. And what I mean by that is, in misdemeanors, a lot of times there were cases where you can tell a person maybe they were just struggling with, maybe they had mental health problems or whatever the reason is. Again, it's a case-to-case basis. And sometimes we have the power to say, hey, instead of this route, I think we should take this route. And our voice is very powerful. So I would say that's my favorite part of being a district attorney, is just having that discretion to do the right thing.
That's such a great answer, because it's like, we have this legal system, but at the end of the day, regardless of, what your politics are or what your ideas are, at the end of the day, this is like the intersection where the legal system meets the human aspect. And it's really cool to hear you say, like, here I am working in this this place that's foundational to the success of an entire city. And I get to try to do the right thing. I hope that that's the case for everyone with that type of power, like that's the ultimate goal. What's the most difficult part of your day to day?
I would say, specifically in downtown, sometimes the triaging, it's very tiring. When I'm trying to, gather who it is that I need. I would say that's one specific thing that I've been getting better at, but it's still very time consuming. I just wish everyone would just show up, But I guess the other thing, if I'm being completely honest, would also be the other side of the moral aspect would be something difficult that I have, where sometimes, even though if I do the right thing, and sometimes I feel bad.
Yeah.
And as far as, because there's only so much I can do. I think that's my thing. I want to do the right thing on both ends, and I would say the hardest thing would sometimes, as much power as I have, is the helpless part of it, where I'm like, we have to do our job at the end of the day as well. So I guess that would be my answer.
Yeah. And you still work within a system. I mean, I felt that way when I was working in ER. You try to do the very best you can. You try to do right by people. But ultimately, like once they leave the department, there's nothing you can do. Like you can't make somebody follow instructions or medical advice, or, like even you can't. I guess that's just life too. It's like, again, thinking about my toddler, you can only do the best that you can to guide them or to try to do the right thing. And ultimately, like there is always going to be a part of the process or a part of the system that is a bit out of your control. And so that's the other side to this double-edged sword you're describing. Do you have any great mentors that have really helped you, or that, you work with on a day-to-day basis that you can just turn to and say like, hey, what do you think about this?
I do. I won't say specific names, but absolutely. This is my third assignment with the office. My supervisors at every single one of these assignments have been phenomenal. I've never felt like I couldn't go to them and ask them for help. And I love that each of them all have different personalities and they have different things to bring to the table. So I've learned like different ways to manage myself as a DA through those experiences. And even like not even just my supervisors, I have so many colleagues that have even just a little bit more experience than me, and I lean on them all the time and just like, somebody help. And they're so helpful, and I have not felt alone in this office. And I would say I think that that's something it's great.
Yeah, that is great. I mean, I think collaboration is really key to any success. I mean, personal innovation is really necessary, obviously. And I think we're going to get into what makes you and what has really driven you, which is going to be the individual piece of this. But I do love anytime I hear somebody talk about their community. Do you, and on that thread, what would you say makes a great DA? Because not all DAs are created equal, right? Like I'm assuming that everybody might have like a slightly different way to do things, or different preferences about how they practice, whether that's like, how they start their day to how they finish their day. But what would you say are some qualities that make a really great DA?
The first quality was kind of what I previously mentioned, is somebody that is willing to think on their feet. And I think any other DA, if you were to ask them that question, they would probably say the same thing, just because of the amount of volume of cases that we have. We're constantly triaging all day. We need to be able to think on our feet. So I would say that's one quality. The other quality of what I personally think makes a great DA is being willing to listen to what's going on, whether it be the court, defense attorney, our supervisors, or listen to the advice from our colleagues. Just being open-minded to hearing everyone's opinion about every single case, because I might think I have this case figured out, and then somebody else may say something completely different. So I would just say being willing to hear everyone out. That's what just makes the best DA. It's not about who knows the most law or who's won the most hearings or cases or motions. It's none about that. It's just being willing to learn having an open mind, and again, just willing to do the right thing because of how much power, like, I think that we have in our
Yeah,
positions.
absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, let's take it back a little bit. I want to get to know young Celeste more. Tell me, a little bit about where you're from, what growing up was like. Paint a picture for me and our audience.
So I'm from the San Fernando Valley. I've been a Valley girl my whole life. I know no other place to live than the Valley. I went to school in the Valley, and I was like most teenagers. At the age of 14, I thought I knew the world and I had all the answers. And I did get pregnant at the end of my ninth grade year. I did finish ninth grade, but I did find out that I was pregnant. I lived at home with my parents, and my parents were extremely supportive. They pretty much said, it's your life, and we're going to support whatever it is that you want to do. And I did move forward, and I have my son, Jesse. He's now 15, almost 16 years
Oh my
old.
gosh.
And my mom thought it was best for me to go to, there was a continuation school in the Valley. So continuation school is just like a smaller school. So she pulled me out of my big regular high school, and it was for pregnant teenagers, which was great because I was
wow.
able to build a community with other young girls that were going through the same thing that I was going through. And I'm still friends with all of them till today, which is great. I went to school there while I was pregnant, which was my 10th grade, I think my first semester, 10th grade year. And then after I had my son, I was off, I think like maybe like 2 months. And then I went back into regular high school my second semester of 10th grade. So I went right back in.
Oh my gosh. So I have so many questions.
Yes, ask.
Now this might be a little out of order because I was going to say your parents sound incredible. Just even in being able to be so supportive in a situation that, is not traditional, and, everyone can react in a different way. But what I was going to ask is, you mentioned that they didn't have a law background. So were your parents working? What types of jobs did they have? And then let's start there, because then I think it's really incredible that your mom was able to have the wherewithal to help you find a school that you could build community in.
Yeah. So my parents, both of them, I come from a Latino background, and my parents did not graduate from high school. So I'm a first generation everything. I have a younger brother, but I did it first. So I say I'm first generation. But he's awesome. He has his degree too now.
Are you guys close?
We're very close. My brother is my favorite human in the whole world, other than my son. So, but my parents have worked. They've had jobs my whole life, and I was lucky enough they grew up in an area that wasn't as great, and they pulled us, and I've only lived again in the Valley. I've lived in a beautiful area my whole life. So I was never exposed to any lower socioeconomic communities. So I was very privileged in that way. My dad works in aviation, so he works with airplanes and airplane repairs. And my mom, she worked at a workers' comp law firm, but as a secretary, and then she was kind of moved on to a manager. So that's their background. But my mom was always very resourceful and made sure my brother and I were okay. So she's
as
the one.
Women are.
As women are, mothers are. And she found the school for me, and she knew that this was the best option for me because I just had way too much going on, and I was so young. So it was the best decision. The way that everything worked out how it was supposed to.
Yeah, like you said, 14 is quite young. I mean, you're a child yourself, right? You're still developing. Our brains don't stop developing until 26, unless you're my husband, in which case that might still be happening. I'm just kidding. I love Kevin. But it is true that the frontal lobe in males takes a little bit longer to develop. That's just a science fact. But all joking aside, 14 is so young, and it's this time in our teenage years where you're for most girls, they're, on the other side of, having that big, your first period, you're going through puberty, hormones are raging. like you said, you think you know everything and you just don't. What was it like for you finding out you were pregnant and telling your parents? Like, did you ever feel like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do next? Or did you have like a sense of, I know what I'm going to do?
I think if I were to try to remember correctly, I thought I'm going to do whatever I want and it's going to work out how I wanted to. So I didn't even have that calculated of a thought process when my parents did find out. It was obviously extremely heartbreaking and devastating for many reasons, right? Like if I look back now, I can't even imagine that happened. But I was just ready to take on the world knowing nothing.
Yeah. Where does that come from? I mean, because it's so bold. Like I can't imagine being so bold or sure of my actions at that time. So I always admired my peers when they're like, I just knew.
I don't know where that came. I don't think it was a good thing. If I'm being so honest with everyone here, I don't think it was a good thing. I think that I was just a spoiled teenager and thought I don't know. I don't even have the right answer because now if I look back, I'm mortified. I was like, I could never, like, I'm not even that sure of myself today and I'm a grown woman.
But it's very interesting to me because I feel like a thread is going to emerge where even if you didn't have like a preconceived notion of it at the time, something has really propelled you towards success your entire life. Like this is something that I think would, I don't want to say break a lot of people, but in a lot of ways, like not everyone could handle this and still emerge having completed high school, having completed college, having completed a law degree, and then made it to the DA's office in the city of Los Angeles, which is no small feat because California is the world's fourth largest economy and Los Angeles is, dare I say, the biggest city in California. So major socioeconomic hub for like the whole world, just to put it out there. But going back, so you had your son at 14, your parents are incredibly compassionate and encouraging, and your mom finds the school and you create community. Was there a point, first of all, what was that like with a newborn? And second of all, was there any point where a sense of what you wanted to do after high school started to emerge?
Yes. So to address how it was like with the newborn, I would go to school as normal and would go home after school as normal. And I had a lot of family that was specifically one of my aunts. She was staying at my place and was helping take care of my son while I was at school. I had my brother who was younger than me. When he would come home from school would also help me. He was only like 12 and everybody was helping me. So yes. And I never felt like I was alone because I had so many people that were around helping me and I was able to do my thing, which was my job was to go to school and I did. As far as, yes, to answer to the other question, when I was with all of these other young women, we're in this school together, we're all pregnant. I heard so many different stories about how they were stuck. I heard so many different stories about their experiences where they're kicked out, they're going through custody battles. And I always had a strong mother and father that were there. So I never had to deal with that by myself. And all of my friends were dealing with that by themselves. And something clicked in me. And I said, you know what? I need to be the voice for these women because nobody else understands. I'm very big on empathy. And I think that empathy makes a great attorney when it comes to dealing with family law cases or even tying it back to being a district attorney. I think just putting yourself a little bit in this position and really adding that human aspect to law makes a big difference. So I didn't know how I was going to get to where I was, but I initially started saying, you know what, I'm going to be representing these young women and I'm going to do my best to advocate for who I thought didn't have a voice. Because I think I myself at that time didn't feel like I had a voice. My mother was my voice, which was fine because I was a teenager and I didn't know what my voice was. But when I saw these other young women struggle, I just thought, how unfortunate is it that you don't have what I have, but I can be that for you. And then eventually my gear shifted of where I thought my voice was going to be used. But I am always a huge advocate for speaking up for anyone that's in any type of vulnerable population. And I would say that being a young teenage mom is one of those populations. So
Experiences. Yeah.
yeah, so that's where my initial spark came from. And I said, I want to be a lawyer to do this.
It's really beautiful, Celeste, because again, going back to what you do in your day to day, and I think when you relate law to like what it is, like I think this has always been kind of the sentiment. Like I have brothers that are just kind of like, well, why should I vote? Because, it doesn't mean anything or my voice doesn't matter. And hearing you just even talk about the empathy portion of it is a great reminder that in the legal system, policy, what it does, how it's written out, the terminology, whatever it is, at the end of the day, it's actually affecting a human being. And so to have somebody on the other end of that who can say, I can see that you're a human being, that you've been through this, I have the empathy, I can relate to it, or I can put myself in your shoes, that is a really beautiful thing. So I don't want to be presumptive, but I do, again, going back to your age at 14, that is, still so young. So being a mom so early, I feel like must have forced you in a way to grow up very, very quickly. Would you agree? And if so, can you talk a little bit about it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I would say that it did definitely push me where I had to grow up faster. Did I in every aspect? Probably not. I think I did still, stay a little bit immature in some areas, but where it mattered, yes, there was no failing, right? Like I have this human here and he's relying on me, and that's what pushed me where I said failing and not making it somewhere is not an option.
Yeah.
My parents are here, my aunt, my brother, everyone around me is here helping me raise this tiny human. And that's a privilege that I saw that 99% of young women in my position don't have. So I never took that privilege for granted.
Yeah.
And that is what I think, in a weird way, I needed.
Yeah.
Because then I don't know what, obviously life happens how it's supposed to, right? But that was just what my path was, because I had a constant reminder and a constant push, and this is what's going to happen. So yes, having my son at the young age definitely made me grow up. I would say more than the growing up, it just pushed me to never
Stop.
Yeah. That's for lack of a better word. Yeah, like I had to keep going. Failing was not an option. And even though I absolutely went through so many bumps, and this wasn't like a straight arrow thing, the end goal was always going to be the same. And I'm very driven that way. And that just comes from, again, my son, I love it when he gets to say, he's like, I tell everyone my mom's a DA. And to me, that's like music to my ears.
That is literally
awesome
so
that,
sweet.
right? How awesome is that?
To have honestly, that's the goal, for your kids to be proud of you.
Yes.
That's the goal. I have to know, because again, my son is 2 years and 8 months, and he is so precocious. And I'm at that stage where like I'm a realist, but like especially with my son, I'm like I'm not gonna like impute any anxiety on him. Like I want him to, but this is a really hard age. So when your son was 2.5, I feel like that's like right around the time you were graduating high school. Please tell me what that was like. How did you survive that? Because it's like everything is no. Everything is like, hey, do you want to go swimming? And it's like one day it's like, I only want to go swimming. And then the day where you can, it's like, no, I don't want to do that. Like, why would I want to do that?
I don't even, I can't even gather my words. Even though he was like a toddler and he was, a little stinker, he was always, I didn't have those problems with him. I think Jesse, he, even at a young age, was aware that I was, because he had to bear me being in school. He had to deal with me
Mm-hmm.
being unavailable. Even till now, like, I work so late that sometimes I don't see him till late at night. And I think at a young age, I had the unique experience where he never wanted to, it's almost like he wanted to take care of me
Oh,
in a way, which isn't always great, right? Because that
yeah.
can be very problematic in and of itself.
Mm-hmm.
However, I like to think of it in a positive way of where he was, yes, he was, just a toddler and running around. And again, I had so much help, but he was always very calm and like nurturing. And I think it just came from the relationship that him and I always had, where it was like, he knew that I was always busting my ass, for lack of better words, with school and stuff, even at such a young age. But he was there. I guess that's something too. Like, one of my greatest accomplishments is he was there when I graduated high school, when I
Yeah.
graduated from Pierce, when I graduated from CSUN, when I graduated law school, and when I got sworn into the bar. So we've lived
Oh,
all of life together.
that has to be so, reciprocally just gratifying and so humbling, like to be able to like make, did you make eye contact with your son at like all of these?
Yes. And I tell him every time this
Like,
scary.
I'm just like putting myself in your shoes. I'm like, if I made eye contact with my son during any one of those moments, like I would have just turned into a puddle, because that's what life is about, right? At the end of the day, regardless of your age or whatever, it's like you worked really, really hard and you did it for you, but you're also doing it for your son. And for him to be able to look at his mom and say, I'm here and I see you, is so potent and incredible.
Yeah.
I'm gonna like cry because it's just,
Don't cry, because then I'm going to cry.
I know. But it really is. These are, again, back to the human moments, back to why we do what we do. And, if anyone was ever like, what's the meaning of life? I don't know. This is a pretty strong case for that. So you decided in your high school journey, in this continuation school where you were, you created this community with other moms, that you wanted to be the person to represent them. You mentioned that goal kind of shifted throughout time, where your voice might have been more effective or more useful, I guess. What started to kind of tip you in a different direction, and what did that portion of your journey look like?
So when I was at Cal State Northridge, I applied for this internship, and there was a few students that got accepted, and I was one of those students. And we got to volunteer at the Van Nuys Courthouse, which is in the Valley, which is nearby my home. And we got to work with judges and kind of watch different types of cases. And my interest was definitely sparked there, where I was like, this is really cool, right? Like, the criminal attorneys, like, because it's very different, right? Like, I'm sure you said you've met with other attorneys where, like, maybe on the civil side, they are in court, and everyone's job is important in the legal field. DAs, we're in court all day, every day. I'm on the record. I get to say Celeste Lozano for the people a million times a day. And I just was like, something about that was so powerful and inspiring to me that I said, it sparked my interest. So then I applied to the DA's office to be as a volunteer. So I was just able to watch the attorneys kind of help, little like volunteer stuff, nothing too crazy, while I was still in school. And then that's when I knew, and I said, this is where I'm going to go. This is where I'm going to be. And that's all it was. It was just something that I think is so important too for young students or anyone. Do those internships. Go see if you like it, because either you'll hate it or you'll love it.
Yeah,
And
get your
I loved
hands
it.
dirty.
Yeah. Go see the day-to-day. Like, do I want to do this every day? And I told myself I do. And I fought throughout law school, and I said, I'm going to fight to be here. And I fought to be there. And I'm so thankful that the DA's office gave me the opportunity, because I absolutely love my job. I love it.
Oh my God. Well, and you can see your passion and, again, your empathy and compassion for people, which I love so much. Were there ever any major roadblocks or setbacks or challenges to getting through those moments? And if so, how did you handle them?
I would say sometimes, well, as far as like my whole career, starting from the beginning of college into to graduating law school, I struggled a lot when it came to passing my classes and kind of doing well when I was at teen community college because I didn't understand. Like I just kind of went in and I wasn't sure what I was doing. So that kind of took some growing up to do. And by the time I did grow up and I was ready to transfer out, my grades weren't where I wanted them to be, but they were enough to get me where I needed to be. So then when I went to Cal State Northridge, I, got everything together and my GPA was like night and day. It was way higher because I was actually taking school seriously. So I would say my biggest roadblock was by the time I was ready to graduate from graduate from Cal State Northridge and apply to law school, I limited myself to where I could go to law school because my grades, when they average out from community college to regular university, it wasn't enough. So I would say that I created a roadblock for myself as far as limiting where I could go to law school. However, it still worked out great because my law school was phenomenal in my opinion as well, because it was a smaller law school and I thrive in those environments. I thrive in the smaller communities. Like I need more time with my professor. I need that little bit of extra help.
Yeah.
So as far as roadblocks that I created for myself, I would say that was definitely one of them, but I'm grateful for it because it was a learning process that I had to go through.
Yeah. I think that's so significant too, because I can relate, and I'm sure so many other people can. When you think about, the major institutions or the major dream jobs, like the American dream type jobs that we like hear about when you're growing up. It's like doctor, lawyer, firefighter, whatever. And I think that there's like this idealistic version of how you're going to get there that makes these roles feel really unattainable for a lot of people, especially people who are first gen American or who don't have parents that went to school or that didn't finish high school, didn't finish college. So you're literally entering this world of academia, like you're jumping into the deep end, right? You're like from applying to colleges to getting into like figuring out how to get from point A to point B. If you didn't have those immediate examples in your family or in your direct environment, I feel like it's a lot harder for people to make that jump of seeing themselves, being successful. And so it's really cool that you're talking about your journey in such a way that, like, if the goal is to be an advocate and to be in law, then it doesn't really matter what the journey looks like as long as you're keeping your eyes on the goal and working toward it incrementally. So it doesn't have to be like, 4.5 GPA with 15 different extracurriculars and a mentor. And then, you get into like this special club or whatever, and then you're in Yale Law School or Harvard Law School and you become Elle Woods. It's like not everyone's journey looks like that, but you can still end up working at the freaking DA's office having done the work. I think it's so commendable. And again, like when you were going through this, were you just like, there's no other option? Like, I just have to figure out what door is going to open for me?
I think I am very much of the mindset of once I know what my goal is, I was going to do everything I could. And I knew that I didn't have the experience or connections. I didn't have much to go off of, so I worked. And that's why I did the internships and I did my best to, learn from my mentors. And I'm very practical.
Yeah.
As far as like what you just stated, like you got to go through the motions and everyone can get to wherever they want to get to. And I shouldn't say that. Not everyone has the privilege of doing that. And I'm very understandable of that. But anyone that does have that privilege, I think it's really important to not be like so hard on yourself if it's not so linear, because mine was not at all. I was up and down for so long. And anyone that says that it's easy and that you can get from point A to point B, I think is a liar, right? I think you got to go through all of this and to make yourself a better attorney or whatever it is that you want to be, like you mentioned, an officer, a doctor, like all of these careers. Like anyone that says it's easy, it's not easy. We got to be honest with ourselves and go through the motions.
Yeah, but I mean, look, the reward is it's so much better. Yeah, I think because you're not like, if it's not handed to you, I feel like the reward is so much better. It's harder for sure, but I mean, look at this incredible career that you are building for yourself, and look at like the example you're setting for your son and for young women who are trying to figure out where their place is in this world. It's absolutely incredible. Do you ever feel, or did you ever feel like in any of these phases that, you know, either as a woman or as a teen mom, that you weren't taken seriously, or that like people were like, oh, maybe that's not going to be something? Because like I feel like a lot of people are very quick to be judgmental, and I'd love to hear how you just maneuvered past that.
Yes, I've been dealing with that since I found out that I was pregnant. About a, not being taken seriously. Absolutely,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of, you're dreaming too high. You need to kind of take it down a notch. And what's so funny is like, even though I did have a lot of that, it maybe internally maybe phased me at some point, but not
Mm-hmm.
really, because I just thought to myself, and I wasn't ever like, I'm gonna do this to prove a point to you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just I know what I'm gonna do and where I'm gonna go, and I'm just gonna get there for me. So I think I luckily for some reason built a mindset where I was able to shut off whatever those voices or
Mm-hmm.
doubts were, and I take myself seriously, and
Yeah.
that's all that really matters. But that it's not ideal, right? Because it's very difficult to get through. I just think I have so much other stuff. Your opinion is not what's going to stop me from
Yeah.
doing what I need to do. But even being a woman in this field as well, it's a male dominated career.
Yeah.
So I think that it's something where, as long as I present myself and I respect myself, I would expect everyone else to respect me as well. But it is a challenge, and it's something I would say, I guess I don't take too hard.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. You can't feed the haters, right?
Yeah.
I love it. And I imagine you get a lot of this strength too from your son. It sounds like you guys have a very tender and loving relationship.
Yes, absolutely, we do.
Oh my gosh, that's so incredible. What a gift. What a gift.
Yeah.
I would love you, you know, even just the fact that you're able to come on and chat with me and talk about some of your experiences and how you got to where you are today has been a real gift for us and for our listeners. I think your tenacity and your strength and your resilience and just, you know, your ability to keep putting one foot in front of the other is a huge testament to who you are as a woman and a human being. And I think the city of Los Angeles is very lucky to have you there, you know, standing up for people and having people's backs. I think empathy is something that we really need so much of in every aspect of life. And so to have that in a court of law will do nothing but serve the American people better. I'd love to keep you for longer, but I can't because you have very important work to do. Besides just being a mom and a human being, you also, you know, are taking care of the entire city of Los Angeles. No big deal. But I do really want to sort of close out our interview with one question that we ask all of our guests. And that is, you know, what was one quality that you had as a young girl or a teen that you didn't take pride in or perhaps notice, but you look back at now and you're like, wow, I'm really glad that I've carried that with me my entire life?
I would say being humbled. I didn't know what the word was of why I was, I had so much and didn't realize I did.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's what I would think of humbled, right? Like, I can be hyping up about all of this,
Yeah.
and was when I put it into perspective and into my life as an adult, I would say that I'm so glad that I never lost that
Yeah.
aspect of myself as a young child, because it's definitely something that, again, I think helps me stand out as not just an attorney or just a mom, just as a human.
Yeah. It's so introspective and it's so lovely that, you know, when we're able to kind of like you're describing, just look at everything that we have and understand that that needs to be met with such gratitude and humility. That is really powerful. Well, thank you so much for coming onto the show and for speaking with everyone. I would ask you to pimp yourself out and tell people where to find you, but I'm guessing that you're going to say at the Los Angeles County Supreme Court.
Yeah, I'm not really active too much on social media.
Yeah.
My job, but I would encourage anyone, if they're interested in joining the office, take a look into it. I think it's a wonderful career if that's something that you're willing to or even considering, and it's very beneficial. So
that's actually a great idea. If you have any resources for some of the internships you mentioned, we'll definitely link them in the show notes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can send that over to you, and then I think that's great.
That would be so great.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much, Celeste.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time today. Have a good one.
Thank you for your time. And that's our show. If you liked what you heard today, please like, subscribe to, follow, and share Meet Bridget with your circle. The best way to help our work here is to rate and review our podcast. We're listening and constantly working to build something helpful for you. Catch you next time.